Um, Hello, everyone. Welcome back. This is Sachin again. And basically, today we'll be talking about important concept called vault. Most of you will be already aware vault is used to secure your information. Could be some your certificates or using a passport, some kind of a API keys, access ID, access keys, and secret keys. Basically, something which you want to secure. You should put it into vault, which can secure information, but something which I wanted to cover in this lesson, and I'm assuming that you have basic understanding of vault, how to store key value pair, how to bring it up, and some kind of a basic understanding. And basically, taking a use case, I want to explain two concepts primarily. One is dynamic credentials. So basically, think about like all these credentials mostly be stored in environment variable or properties files, or if it's too bad, it will be stored in a GitHub repository, which is not good. What does you can actually securely all the static password information in Vault. However, there's a feature called dynamic secret creation, where you can any application can dynamically request for a credential. Vault can create a short-lived token, and it depends on the policy whether um, it wants to expire in some time. Let's say it will be valid only for 10 minutes and then it gets expired, or maybe based on depending on number of usages. It all depends on the policy configuration, but there is a provision. Vault can dynamically create those credentials, pass on to the application which has requested, and once the lease is over, Vault will go and deactivate or delete those credentials. So let's understand it with a diagram here. So we have a vault in middle, okay, and on the right top side you see there's an AWS, right? And then you need to do some kind of a, let's say, initial configuration where vault you will configure with AWS. There are various ways to do it. We will be using this IAM user method, which works good, and it's very straightforward for one single AWS account. There are other ways also to federate and use multi accounts, but that will not be the scope of this demo. Maybe sometime in future. Okay, so now on the left side, think about like you have an application, bot, or program, or human who needs to talk to the vault, right? So this is my step one, and I'm calling this as my Ubuntu. So this is my program. I'll be just showing it in a demo. We'll be deploying one pod or a small program. I will name it as my Ubuntu, which will talk to the vault. And vault already knows AWS. Vault will contact AWS and get the credentials and pass on to this machine, this program. And once it has these credentials, depending on the configurations depending on the configuration which we have set Vault with AWS, this can reach out to AWS for that information. Like for in this demo, we will configure it to have only read-only permission to S3 buckets. So this machine can talk to AWS only to read the content for that on the S3 bucket. So there are two important concepts. If you see over here, the first, or I'll write it A here, where Vault will contact AWS, get the dynamic credentials. That's one part. And the B here, where the machine, if it claims that, okay, I am my Ubuntu, Vault needs to validate that, yes, you are what you're claiming to be, that you are. So that is done via app roles. We'll talk more in details. So whenever a machine has to talk to Vault, I mean, the good guidelines is like you need to use the apples. We'll cover that, what exactly is an apple. There are various ways to secure it. So basically, this makes the whole setup very much secure because nobody else can take that. Only my Ubuntu program will have the access to role ID and secret ID. Don't worry about it. We'll discuss more in details, but we're using that. This will authenticate to the Vault. Vault in turns will talk to AWS, get their credentials, pass on to this guy, and this can talk to AWS directly using the access key and secret key. Okay, so here what the setup I'm gonna do here is like there will be an admin person. Okay, and this will set up Vault, basically the role ID, and get the secret ID for this application and pass on to this guy. And from that point of onwards, everything is very much secure because this program has to securely keep that data, pass on to the Vault, and nobody knows in between. However, still there is a security risk here because as an admin, it anyway will know the secret information and it can reach out to the Vault, pretending that this is my Ubuntu application. So yes, this makes it, this whole setup is a little bit not that secure, but there are ways to even secure that even this admin having a root privilege into the Vault, still it cannot see that. And that concept is called using the cubbyhole key value storage engine and using the wrap and unwrap. So by using that, even this root will not have an access to see that cracks. However, and that only this application can unwrap that or read that secret data. Basically, this role ID and secret. Role ID is like your username and secret as password. You need to keep it safe. You need to store it safe place. This cubbyhole and then wrap and rep, I will not be able to cover in this demo, maybe sometime in future, but the remaining part will cover just to give you a very high end, very high level information, and with some demos that that this application can securely reach out to AWS for the credentials. So let's get started, guys. All right, share my screen. Okay, so this is my AWS console, and I will just quickly show the setup of my application. I have a 3-node Kubernetes cluster, and this is running many namespaces. And one of the namespace Vault, there is a Vault pod running. This is a brand new setup. You see, this is just 29 minutes before I have spin it up. And then we can reach out to this URL, cubes, which is now we showed you. It's running in 8.3.0.820 port. All right, so it's a brand new setup. The only change I have done is I have discarded the root token, which is a good practice, and included my admin user, which has all the access. Okay. Perfect. So few things before starting, just want to cover. There is a secret where you want to store it. There are many different engines which you can enable. By default, there's only cubbyhole enabled, just how we talked about it. But you can actually have KV store or AWS. AWS is what we will be using it. KV is for key value pair, and so on and so forth. Secret is something which you store information, right? Access something, by using that, you authenticate to the Vault itself, right? So let's say if I have to reach to Vault, and as I said, I just enabled the user path. So this is the engine I have enabled it before this demo, so that I can authenticate with my admin credentials. But there are many ways you can authenticate to the Vault, and as you know, that the machine is going to talk to the Vault to reach out to AWS to get the credentials. And we talked about app role. So usually app role is used for machines to authenticate to the Vault. User and password is mostly for humans to reach out to the Vault to authenticate itself. But it's not limited to only these two. There are many more ways you can actually authenticate to the Vault and prove that prove your claim that you are what you're claiming to be you are, which Vault can anyway validate that. So all right, so let's get started. So first of all, we need to enable app role over here, and I can pretty much go here, app role, select next, give a path. The default is app role, and enable this method, but I will be doing it programmatically. And in the secret also, you can enable new engine. I can go to AWS, go to the next, choose AWS, and enable all that. But let's do it programmatically, how to do it. So vault auth enable app role. So this thing. Okay, I need to log in first. Vault login. So I'm using with admin. Same place I've used to log into this UI. Okay, so this enables an app role. So whatever anything authentication to Vault itself, basically this tab, these commands will start with Vault auth, but all the commands with secrets will start with Vault secrets. So you see that app role has come over here. Similarly, let me Vault secrets enable. So let me enable KV, which is key value store, and as well as AWS. So let's enable all of them, both of them. So we see that KV and AWS has come over here. So this is just enable these engines. It has yet not configured. So configurations, we need to do it manually. So before going to AWS, let's quickly see the key value, right? So Vault, it's as simple as that, right? Vault right, KV /app/app1 and name equals such. The data will be written over here. You refresh it and you see that apps1, and then you can see this from default. You won't see it, but you can click this. I can see the information, and you can say Vault read KV /app/app1, and you get this information back. Okay, perfect. Now, primarily we need to configure the AWS, and as said, like you can go to configuration, configure, and I need to put my access key and security. So first of all, like on the configuration of Vault to AWS, we need to create a user which Vault will be using, and using that user, whatever applications or humans who reach out to Vault and get the credentials, this is the guy who will be issuing that. So it's quite logical that this guy must have sufficient permission to create those credentials, right? For this demo, I will be using an admin user, but this need not to be an admin user. Just give in a production environment, just give sufficient permission, which is needed over here. So admin, and it should have a programmatic access. I'll attach the admin policy. Next type view, and that's it. Okay, so this is created. By the way, by the time I upload this video, I will be deleting all that passwords, users which I'm using it, including these keys. So there's no harm to display it over here right now. Okay, so Vault needs to be configured with this guy. I can actually go directly and key in my access key, secret key, and vision over here, but let's do it how to do it programmatically. So Vault documentation. Okay, and because I'm gonna set secrets for AWS, and that's where I will go to secret engines and AWS. Okay, this step I have already done. You've already seen that, and let's follow this. Vault right AWS config root access key is equals to. Then let's give the access key, which I have. Secret, same name. Secret key, yes. It's equals to. Let's copy that. Okay. And the last part is region. Let's give you a east one. All right, so this is configured by default. When Vault creates the credentials, pass on to the person who is accessing Vault for them, I think it internally creates for 30 minutes or something, if I'm not wrong. But I just want to showcase that when Vault issues it and when the lease is over, lease depends on policy. It could be like the key is valid at till this time or these many hour, minutes, or seconds, or based on number of usages, like you can use this key only once or only 10 times, something like that. All depends on the policy. So let's define the lease, and in my case I want to define lease very short, so that when the lease is over a few seconds, few tens of seconds, you see that key is also deleted from the AWS. Vault will go ahead and delete that. So vault write AWS config and under release, say 30 seconds, let's say 25 should be fine. So this configuration is completed. Now, once my configuration is done, I need to create some roles. You can create multiple roles over here, but one of the role I want to create on which any machine who is accessing to the vault for this role, vault should provide the read-only access to the S3 bucket. So that all we need to do. You can visually do it in here in UI. Just give something meaningful name of this role and the policy ARN. Basically, this is the policy which will be created for that user. So against when the access key and secret key is issued to the end user, like my Ubuntu machine in this case, that access key and secret key will be created against this policy. And this policy ARN is what end user wants to do it, like reaching out to S3 for read-only purpose. So let's grab me the policy ARN. Policy, and let's search for read-only. Okay, you get it here. You can define your inline policies, but I think policy ARN makes it a little simple. So I have my policy ARN. So I will go to the documentation again, and this is the way you can define your inline policies, but this is what I'm more interested in. So vault policy write, and I'm going to give an S3 role. So I'll say S3 read-only. By the way, this policy ARN I have already copied Amazon S3 read-only access and credential IAM user. So this is what you see over here. Credential IAM. I am not interested to put into any groups or assign any inline policy, and that's why this command is super short. Vault write. You write under whatever rules you want to define. I'm going to call it as read-only. Define the policy ARN, and the type is IAM user. As I said, there are multiple ways to configure it. IAM user is one of the main ways which you can quickly configure. But there are federation and STS, which hopefully I may cover sometime in the future. Okay. So before that, let's come to the vault and let's see AWS. And I have no role. Enter it, was created, refresh it. My S3 read-only role has been created. Now, if I say generate either here, it will generate the credentials for me. And you remember, like this is the lease and against all that will be created. So let's go to here under users. I have only these two users. This is what I just now created. And this user vault internally is using for the all admin purposes. So I'll go here and say generate. This is reaching out to AWS using these credentials which we have configured, and it has created this access key and secret key. And you see access key ends with ML2. And this, you can go here, refresh it, and you see a new user has been created. It has the role name also and some random number. Just go inside, go to security credentials, and you see this ends with ML2, the same thing which it has printed over here. It has a permission only S3 read only. And we go to the user back again. Do it, refresh a couple of times, give it sufficient time. So at least 25 seconds are reached, and we see that vault has reached out to AWS and deleted that user because we have given the lease period only 25 seconds. So let me, I've already, so in fact, you can programmatically also do that. You can say vault read AWS creates as read only, and then it will create a new credentials. Again, they will be valid only for 25 seconds. And this time it is K4H. Let's quickly verify that. Users, refresh, yes, created. Security credentials, and you see K4H stands with that. Perfect. And anyway, Vault will delete this user also in 25 seconds. But right now, I want to increase the policy duration because this is no more needed, just to keep it that short. So I'll just give 4 hours, and I will give like 1 hour here. Now on whatever credentials we get it, they will be valid for 2 hours, and within 4 hours period of time, they can be renewed. All right, so this shows one of the part where Vault can reach out to AWS and get the dynamic credentials. But what about like a machine who reaches to the Vault, authenticate itself, and in turn reach to this path and get the credentials? So I will just copy it and save it somewhere. I will use it later. Okay, now basically to get pods in my default namespace. There's only one pod running. Let's ignore it for now. I'm gonna run another pod, my Ubuntu machine. So let's to run my rules. I already have this command. I will sleep for 3600. Give us sufficient time for this demo to finish. Okay. So this pod has been created. We'll get pods. Okay, it is running state. Let's go inside the pod. Like Qt -it. Okay, it's already there in the history. Perfect. So I got a little issue while downloading and setting up Vault in my Ubuntu, and I've saved some of the commands. So I saved some time in my demo. So let's update it, install curl unzip, which will be needing it, download the zip for Vault, unzip it, export this variable and point it to the Vault URL, which I'll be using. So let me copy this and paste it here. Okay, why? It's not downloaded. Why? Let's try one more time. Okay, here. Unzip. Vault. So that's, of course, I don't have permission because I have not authenticated by any means. And this guy needs to have access to the Vault. But this guy should have only that permission so that it can generate those dynamic credentials. Basically, it should have permission only to this path. So we need to give, we need to define a policy first and create a role, app role, associate that policy with that app role, and then pass that app role to this guy. And that way, this guy will have access only to that path. So I have already created a file called a.scl, which I think this is the same path, right? S3 only. Same path. Oh, okay. Here it is S3. Same path. Right. So this policy says in this path, somebody can create, read, update, on list. So let's create a role. So write auth/app role, and I'm gonna define. I need to create a policy first. Policy write. Then I'm gonna say it my policy, my policy.scl, and then I need to use the above command. Auth role S3 read only app role policy is equals to my policy. Okay. So this has created S3 read only app role. So this is app role, not the previous role which we have created in AWS. And then this policy is associated. What is this policy? You can always policy read. This policy has capability that only this path it can reach out. Now the only thing left is to create the role ID and secret. So read. You can read the role which you have just created. Okay, but to get the ID, you just need to say role -ID. Right. So now you got the role ID, and similarly you get the secret ID. Secret, but secret you don't need a read. You just need to write. Now you have a role ID and a secret ID. Now, because they have been created for this role, and this role has been associated with this policy, and this policy can this things, which means anybody who has this role and secret can do only this operation. And let's provide this role ID and secret to this guy. So now what I'm going to do here is /Vault vault write Apple login equal to this secret equal to this guy. This has just displayed this information. It has yet not logged in it. So if you say vault lookup, it must have permission to look up at least itself, look up self. But because it is not authentic, it's just given this information, you need to log in with this token. So vault log this. Now you have logged in with this token. Now if you issue this command, vault token lookup, you will see that you got some information. Now you see here that this has associated this policy, and we know this policy. It cannot list that policy here. If you just write vault policy read my call, because it doesn't have a permission to do that. But if I go to my previous window where I've logged in my admin credentials, I can distribute that policy. So this has just sufficient permission to get the credentials because it has an access to this my policy, which has access to this path. So now only thing left is to generate the credentials. So vault read AWS /s3 read only. And before that, let's go here and verify that there's no other user. Okay, there's nothing over here. So it has created a user with CF5 and it leads durations 2 hours because we have changed the leads some time back. Now you refresh it. We see that new role has been created. It has only S3 read-only permission, no security credentials, and then access key. We see it's the same access key ending with CF5. So I think this pretty much explains the whole end-to-end process, that how an application can reach out to Vault, which internally can reach out to AWS, get the dynamic credentials. There will be a lease period in terms of policies associated with that. So this makes systems very secure, and it's good to use Vault. Now, the only thing is, as an admin, because I was doing this demo as an admin, I was able to look into role ID and secret ID and has passed to this information using Terraform, basically stabilizing some kind of a trust application in between, and using cubbyhole wrap unwrap. Even as an admin, even if I have a root access to Vault, I cannot peep on this secret. All right, that's pretty much from my side. Hopefully you have enjoyed this video. If yes, please give some likes so I can create some more videos in future. Thank you.